Good evening, and welcome to Press Play. I'm your host, Cedric Fisher. For those of you new to the show, Press Play is a broadcast from Black Video News Network. You can find us at blackvideonews.com. Like our Facebook page, Black Book Studios, and you can find this episode, all previous episodes, and future episodes of Press Play on YouTube. Just put Black Video Network, type Black Video Network, all one word, no spaces, in the search bar. It'll pull up the shows. By all means, subscribe to the channel. And to view this episode, just scroll down, look for the episode, and press play. Okay, welcome to Friday. It's been another great week, and COVID is still the big issue that's on the streets. Maybe we should call it the big white elephant in the middle of the room. We've got 300 deaths now here in Barrett County, and the positive cases continue to rise, with about 3,000 deaths in the state of Texas. So this thing's not going away anytime soon. I want to encourage all of us, all of you, to listen to the medical experts. Wear your mask, whether you feel that it's a legitimate virus or not. Think about the next person. Do your social distancing, self-isolation at home. Just be careful when you can. Wash your hands. We're in the Black Book Studios here in San Antonio, and we've got a divider here on the table. I'm not sure if you can see it, but this keeps myself and the guest nice and protected. So be very careful about COVID. All of us by now know at least a person or two maybe who have contracted the disease, the virus. Others may know someone who has passed away, and it's just not a good thing, a good sign. So the other big issue that's currently still brewing is the racial injustice, police reform protests that are going on. In fact, last night the protest or march was in Alamo Heights, and I've studied some of the news from the outcome, and there was some controversial things that happened. What we do know is that the marchers are still energetic, still determined and vigilant about making sure they get the outcome that they are looking for. I was on the phone with a friend of mine recently, and African-American friend. I only say that just to remember that, just to introduce my guest in a second here. But we were discussing the march and the protest, and sort of comparing or contrasting them to the civil rights movement of the 60s. And we both felt, first of all, there was a lot of progress with the civil rights movement in the 60s. Of course, a lot of legislation came out of it. Segregation was dismantled. Integration was the new thing. And a lot of us have a lot to be thankful for: voting rights and ability to drink at the same water fountain as anyone else, and some other things. What's different about this time? So he and I both came to the agreement that the reason hope is really alive this time is, if any of you have been viewing the protests, 2/3 of the marchers tend to be non-black, although everybody seems to be believing and supporting Black Lives Matter. Those who are marching, of course. There's another entity or community that just is against it completely. However, the 2/3 of the marchers tend to be non-black, and in that regard, we both appreciate, my friend and I on the phone, that this really could bring some good change that turns life into something that a lot of us are a lot more appreciative of. I'll give you an example of some of the protesters. At one point, I looked at a visual that there one particular day, this was a couple weeks ago, there were 140,000 people in Germany chanting Black Lives Matter and George Floyd. That gives us all hope. With that, our guest tonight is a member of, or let's say a participant of the protests. He has attended a lot of the marches that have gone on, and this particular gentleman just happens to be white. I'm going to introduce Rodney Kidd to the show. Rodney, welcome to Press Play.
Thank you, Cedric. Very nice to be here, and thanks for having me on the show.
Let me just give you guys a little intro to Rodney. So he is an activist, advocate, social media expert, influencer, mobile app consultant. Rodney is also very active and influential in political campaigns. A lot of the local politicians as well as state level politicians are aware of him and reach for him during their campaigns because he's very knowledgeable and just understands marketing from the social media standpoint. He's currently president and CEO of Rodney Kidd Consulting. And again, he's one of the folks that you see very visible in the protest. He's good friends with a lot of the protest leader. There's various groups in the protests that are out there. They all know Rodney. So welcome to the show, Rodney.
Thanks, Cedric.
Before we get started, why don't you just introduce your background, where you're from, and to our audience here.
Oh, absolutely. So I'm from Texas, from Austin. And I moved here to San Antonio to help take care of my mom. So I've been in San Antonio since 2012. And since then, I've grown a lot of friends, a lot of relationships, learned a lot about San Antonio, about the climate, as far as the political climate, the startup communities, in San Antonio overall. So that's kind of what I've been doing the last 8 years.
So what's your current line of work, Rodney? What are you?
To summarize it, I would say marketing.
Marketing
is a good way to put it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Startups, political campaigns.
Lots of startups, political campaigns, heavily social media. That's been my core focus within the realm of marketing.
Okay.
And activism. So I like to help with homeless. I like to help with racial inequality, any type of injustice, as far as police brutality, anything in that scope. Any wrongs, I like to do what I can do to help make them right.
You're out there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the big question my audience is thinking right now, how does a white man get on the front lines of a cause that's for maybe non-white folks or for people of color?
Well,
what's the motivation behind it, I guess?
Right. Well, I think there's several motivations for me. One is I really learned about protests and marching through the Democratic Party. Most important, the racial inequality. I thought that was going away back in the 80s, or 70s. I can't believe we're here in 2020 having this discussion. So the fact that we're having this discussion, I want to do whatever I can do to be part of it to end that inequality. And so that's what's led to my participation. Last night, the group was the Young Ambitious Activists that put on the march. And their mission is love. Their mission is unity, and so I believe in what their mission is, and so that's what drew me out to Alamo Heights. Okay,
good. How's the march and protest going right now? What's currently how are things doing?
It's the marches are start. A lot of people came out. There was a lot of angry, a lot of confusion, a lot of anger, a lot of confusion. And now what it's starting to do is see the reasons that today's youth is brilliant, by the way, who's leading these marches, just absolutely brilliant. Okay. But what they're starting to notice, from what I can tell, is that we need systemic change from policies, procedures. So, how do we prevent this from happening? And, you can get upset with one person, but then they're just going to be replaced by another. So how do we build the system, and how do we have the regulatory affairs, the laws, the rules? How do we implement policy to prevent or deter racism and racial inequality.
Okay. Here's a big controversial topic. Defund the police. What's your take on that?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. I think defund the police was meant to get attention, to get the police attention. I don't think it's is the word defund police. It makes you think they're just going to take all the funding away and there will be no police, and that's incorrect. The protesters, from what I can tell, they're saying let's reallocate these resources. Why is 3/4 of our city's budget going to the police department? Not all to the police, but emergency services. But why not take some of these police department budget? Why not put it towards education? Why not put it to helping single moms? Why not putting into, when people get out of jail, having workforce development so you don't go to jail? So why not rethink this? We just want to throw Americans in jail rather than why don't we improve our society? Why don't we invest in our people and in our society? So that's what defund police really means. However, I think it was a little bit of a shock appeal, saying, "Hey, look, if you're not going to act right, we're going to get your attention." And so I think that's it's just a matter of understanding that nobody wants to end the police department. Yeah. All we want is the right resources in the right place to get the right outcome.
So a reallocation of resources,
absolutely,
is what the real objective is.
Absolutely.
And I understand like mental health and training of the police officers is part of
right.
what they want the money to go to.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Training, knowing how to respond, having special units that are created to handle specific special circumstances. So, why should we send three police units over to a 16-year-old kid that has a mental condition? It doesn't make sense. Why not send a mental specialist team out there to address that situation? And also not to let things escalate. Also, if you have specific teams built for specific problems, then they can de-escalate the situation because they have more knowledge on it. So yeah. You're right. Education, really, those type of things really is what defund the police is meant to stand for.
Okay, let's talk about the protest again. You're on the front lines. You're up there with a lot of the leaders. What's your view from the front there in terms of the demographic, age, ethnicity, gender? I mean, what's it really look like out there?
Well, from what I can tell, we marched to Alamo Heights High School, and they had several high school students that told their stories that they witnessed racism firsthand.
Yeah.
A mom even got on the store in front of everybody and told the story about what happened to her daughter at graduation. She was not allowed to speak, and she should have been one of the speakers, keynote speakers. But from what I can tell, the youth is very smart. They're not going to tolerate racism, and they're going to make sure that their voice is heard. I know several of the young ladies spent a lot of time putting a petition together. So they're going to do what they have to do to make sure nobody goes through what they or deals with what they did,
right?
What they've had to incur.
Okay. So in your world, in your life, your line of work, do you witness racism? Have you really kind of seen it in motion, in action, or do you feel it on any level? I'm sure you got friends in your circles
right.
that have shared
right.
some of their experiences with you, but have you ever seen anything?
Yeah, I mean, I try to surround myself with folks that aren't racist. If something was to ever come up, then I would think we would address it in the most civil manner as to why is this racism occurring. But as far as racism, I mean, I have seen some racism out in the community. I don't agree with it, but I definitely try to surround myself with people who would not bring that to the table.
How about police reform? Have you witnessed or experienced anything in that regard? The negative side of
Right.
policing.
So what? Yes. So I have witnessed. Are we sticking to racism as far as police with racism?
It could be police brutality that happened to you, or
Well, I did see some police brutality, and I saw the police in the Bexar County Jail. They have a team called the XIII, and I saw them beat up a mental health patient, and then call for more. And so that was a pretty alarming situation to know that occurred. Is horrific. And police brutality should not be tolerated, but also we should do whatever we can do utilizing technology, utilizing systems, operations, policy, everything we can do to put everything in place to not allow people to make mistakes, hopefully to point them in the right direction and set everybody up for success rather than failure. I know in one instance, I know there was an officer that was serving a warrant at 3 a.m. I don't know how much good can come out of serving a warrant at 3 a.m. And he ended up shooting one of the gentlemen and didn't say who he was coming to the door. And so, I don't think putting that officer in that position to serve a warrant at 3 a.m. was fair to him.
Yeah.
I certainly don't think the outcome of the death of an innocent person, by all means, that's totally unacceptable.
Of course, if it was a wanted fugitive, then does that justify it?
Well, I think we would need to know more of the story.
Okay.
If he was shooting back at him and wanted and put the officer's life at risk or threat or society, then by all means you have to take the appropriate steps there.
Yeah.
But in this situation, I'm not so sure that was what happened.
And all police officers or law enforcement officers aren't bad. It's the issue is just over the bad cops, right? The ones that just aren't trained and poorly trained and for whatever reason.
No doubt. The issue with George Floyd and what happened to him was unacceptable. That in itself led me to protest, to tell you the truth. When I saw the knee in the man's neck, that did it for me. When I saw him with his hands in his pockets, ice cold, looking around, showing his authority in his mind, in his actions, or his attempt at authority, and his behaviors, that drove me to protest. Earlier, back to your earlier question, that's really what drove me to protest. But not all police officers are bad, and I don't think any of these groups are saying that. I think these young groups protesting are wanting change. They don't want to have to come protest. They want to. I mean, these are teachers, these are lawyers, these are students. These are people and kids that they have better. They would rather not have to come out and do this. If it was not occurring, that would be great. But since it is occurring, they want to be out there, and they're not going to stop being heard. But in an ideal, perfect world, I don't think any of them want to have to do this.
Yeah.
But they're most definitely, as long as injustice is being served, they are going to protest, and they are going to be heard.
How about the current city government and political leaders? Have they really embraced and been helpful with this agenda?
I think that here in San Antonio, Bexar County, I think most definitely the leaders are doing what they can do to support this movement with equality. They want to get rid of injustice. They want to get rid of police brutality. I feel that our leaders are doing the best that they can do. Would I like to see them out at the marches more? Absolutely. Are we fighting COVID? That's a situation. Absolutely. So, but within their scope of expertise and work, I would say most definitely every single political leader I've seen in San Antonio, in my opinion, is doing to the best of their ability. As far as the police chief, I think he definitely probably could be out a little bit more, maybe on the front line.
Okay.
I would like to see the political leaders at these marches. So really to answer your question, I think they're doing a good job, but I don't think they're at the marches enough. I think they need to come out. They need to be at the marches. They need to make their face seen. And these young kids that are making a stand, these young folks, need to see their elected leaders back them, support them, and speak up for them.
Okay. We're going to take a break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about the 3 wrongful deaths at the hands of law enforcement that are a big issue that a lot of folks are still talking about, and get your take on it. We're talking to Rodney Kidd, social media consultant and activist advocate for racial injustice. We're coming right back. Stay tuned.
Hello, this is Cornell with Frost Bank.
Hi there, this is Terry with Frost.
Good evening, this is Franklin.
This is Robert with Frost.
Hello, this is Rosemary with Frost Bank.
One, 6, or a dozen trees. No job is too big or too small. Booker's Tree Services is a certified arborist and state licensed company. On the ground or in the air, we are here to take care of all your tree needs, from stump grinding, tree pruning, tree trimming, tree removal, and much more. Call the professionals to help manage your commercial or residential needs. Don't let your trees make you nervous. Call for a free estimate today at Booker Tree Service, 210-657-8085.
One in 3 adults has prediabetes. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Because of you, I feel not alone in this world. And you let me know that it only takes one person to make you feel wanted.
One in 3 adults has prediabetes. That means it could be you, your favorite brother, your other brother. Yes. You, your football buddy, your football buddy. You, your plumber.
Breathe right into your foot.
Your plumber's masseuse.
Yes.
You, your dog walker, your cat jogger. With early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Does your life matter? Education, health, and finance can determine your future and explain your past. Pick up the latest edition of Black Life Texas Magazine, a monthly outlook on life with an African American focus. Life is what you make it, so live it in the black.
Welcome back to Press Play. I'm your host, Cedric Fisher. If you're just tuning in, we are discussing racial injustice and the current protests going on. Our special guest today is Mr. Rodney Kidd, who is by profession a social media and marketing expert, but he has been a big advocate and activist and on the front lines of the protests going on. Welcome back, Rodney.
Thanks, Cedric.
So let's talk about, you were at the Alamo Heights event last night.
Yeah, it started at Stoneworks Restaurant, went down Broadway to Alamo Heights High School.
Okay.
And on the way back, we got back to Stoneworks, and
it was a peaceful march up until
great peaceful march.
Right up until
peaceful march.
An incident happened.
Everything was fine.
Okay.
Everything was fine. Marched down in one lane, came back in one lane. Everything was fine. So as we're going back, we get back to Stoneworks, and one of the young high school speakers is on the mic, is talking, and this gentleman walks out of Stoneworks and says, "Get out of my way," white gentleman, kind of heavier set. And I saw him, and ironically, the kids he told to get out of the way were white kids who were part of the protest.
The protest, okay.
Yeah, they were young, very young, 12, 13 years old.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
which meant they needed parental permission to be out there.
Right. Their parents were out there.
So their parents were with them.
Parents were with them.
Interesting.
So he came out, and I mean, they were standing a little ways away, but they came. So he came out and yelled at them to get out of the way, and just kind of brushed them off and get out of the way, get out of my way. Gets in his car, pulls out his big truck, pulls out very fast. And one of the activists had been loading something up in their car. She's a veteran. Actually, she's in the military. She's active duty. I'm sorry, she's not a veteran. She's active duty. And so she had her Jeep. He pulls out. She's standing there. She's obviously going to need to get back in her Jeep, move her Jeep so he can get out of the way. And he took his truck and bumped her. Literally bumped her. He knew she was there. He stopped ahead of time, and then he nudged forward and hit her.
So this was a white child that he hit?
No. Those who he told to get out of the way.
Oh, those are the ones.
This was a black active duty service female.
Okay, he hit her.
He hit her.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
He hit her, and then he stuck out his tongue when we asked him what he was doing. We said, you just hit her.
Was she okay, or?
As far as I know, she's okay.
She's okay.
Yeah, she might be a little sore today, little bumps and bruises, but I think she's okay.
Yeah.
But we told him, hey man, you hit her, and he did not care. He didn't care. He actually stuck his tongue out.
Yeah. Was there law enforcement there at the time? Did they?
Well, and then that's something that goes back to the systemic, to planning. The law enforcement was there at the start, all the way down to the high school, then all the way back, and then the law enforcement left. So law enforcement, to answer your question, no, they were gone.
Interesting.
And he left the scene. So he hit and run, assault with vehicle. I mean, what he did was horrific, and it could have been a really, really bad outcome.
Interesting.
And so, had the police stayed, he probably wouldn't have behaved in that manner. Also, where the protesters, where we were standing in the parking lot, we probably should have been somewhere else. So, there were several circumstances there that could have been done, handled differently, and that situation would have never occurred.
Okay.
Right.
Very interesting. Before we broke for commercial, we were discussing the 3 unlawful death situations at the hands of law enforcement, and I know you're very familiar with them. What's your take on those?
Regarding Marquise, Charles, and Antoine, I would love to see all 3 of those cases reopened. I think they should be reopened. I think that there's some racism involved. I think there's some bad practices, not using best practices. I think there's some, just across the board, there's a lot of issues that the pieces need to be put on the table and the puzzle needs to be put together.
Yeah.
So that's, in my opinion, and that would start with the district attorney opening up the cases again.
Has he been helpful and cooperative?
There's some, from my understanding, he is. That's my understanding. I know there's a gentleman by the name of Chris Herring that's been speaking with him on that level, and the feedback I'm getting is that progress is being made.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear, because I know those cases are very sensitive and controversial.
Well, they're very sensitive to the community. The community needs to know that they have their district attorney's support. They need to know they have law enforcement support. And then we need to know how and why this happened, and then what we can do to make sure it never happens to anybody's children again.
Very good. Rodney, I know the legislation that some of the marching and protesting is looking for hasn't quite happened yet, but what's the future of the marching and the protesting? Is there like a cutoff date? Do you think this will continue on? What's the plan next?
Well, I think the marches are, the youth is going to keep the marches going.
So they're going to keep going.
They're going to keep it going.
Yeah.
They're not going to let it go until there's a solution to the problem. They're pulling out, they've lifted up the hood, they're looking at the engine parts, and the best thing the youth is doing is saying, okay, we're looking at the union contracts for the police department. You know, they are really getting to the nuts and bolts of why we're not getting the change, why it's continuing to happen. And I think a lot of the leaders are starting to understand that and wanting to participate and help any way they can.
Okay.
So, to answer your question, the marches aren't stopping anytime soon.
It's not stopping anytime soon.
I hope they could. I hope we can get to a resolution, get some things figured out, and pass some laws that can help and bring some technology in. But for right now, these marches, I don't see them going away.
Okay.
Not before a solution.
And is there another one scheduled soon, or?
Yes, they've got other ones scheduled. I would go to the Young Ambitious Activists Facebook or website. I would go to the Reliable Revolutionaries. I would go to either one of those two and look at those marches and see when they're taking place. I also think the marches are also graduating. I know that the People's Rep into some online movements as well because of COVID. So I think you'll see a slight transition of maybe not as many protests, but maybe more online protests. So that's the way I see moving forward, the way I perceive it to happen.
Okay. So let's talk about you a little bit. You're from Texas.
Yeah, I'm from Texas.
You're from the South.
I'm from Austin.
Okay. And I always applaud and celebrate any, I'm African American, obviously, man. Right. We got our issues that are currently on the streets, and it's a good thing because we're hoping for change. But I always applaud anybody outside our race that takes interest in what's going on and is active about trying to bring change. What was your life like as a child? Around the dinner table, did you guys tell us a little bit about it?
There was a man by the name of, my family ate together, but during the summers we had summer camps outside of Austin. We had Friday Mountain Boys Camp, and then we had a girls camp, Friday Mountain Girls Camp. So there was a man there at the girls camp by the name of Dempsey. And Dempsey happened to be black, African American, man of color. And Dempsey was, he did the dishes on the food line. He did the food for the girls. And Dempsey actually raised me. So we fished together, we hiked together, we swam down in the creek, we canoed together. So Dempsey was family.
Okay, so this was an older man. That took you around with him and
he did.
Taught you all this stuff and raised you.
And he actually had been convicted of murder. He came home, his wife, something was going on with another gentleman. The other gentleman, Dempsey didn't know what's going on. This was in the 50s. And they got in a struggle, and the other guy went out the window. And so Dempsey couldn't read or write, and so he really didn't have much of a chance, I don't think. So he went to jail, he got out, and he came to work for my dad. And my dad didn't tell anybody that he had been, where he met him. My dad had worked in the prison system after college. He was a captain, and Dempsey was a trustee, so he met him, and he said, "You seem like a great guy. If you ever get out, I'll help you get a job." He got out, nobody would hire him, so my dad did.
Okay.
And my mom never knew, so we don't want her to see this.
Okay.
But no. She finally found out later after Dempsey had passed away. But Dempsey was a family member, and to me, I have a soft place in my heart for Dempsey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Great
curious.
man.
I almost knew there was some influence that was close to home.
Right.
As you were growing up, that gave you this interest and sensitivity for and compassion for underserved people and maybe people of color.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Well, I want to tell you one quick story. So my dad, I was born, and I was a baby of 4, and my siblings came up to me, and Dempsey was pushing me in the stroller. And he wouldn't let my other siblings touch me. So my dad said, "Dempsey, I don't understand. You won't let his brothers and sisters touch him. What's going on there?" And Dempsey says, "Well, he's got the real pale skin, and I don't want them picking him up and the sun burning him." And so my dad said, "Dempsey, you have to let his brothers and sisters hold him." And he said, "Well, I will, I guess, but it'll be in the shade." So that was, Dempsey wasn't going to let anything happen to me, not even a sunburn.
That's fantastic. Bless Dempsey's heart. Rodney, we have the privilege of interviewing a lot of great leaders and movers and shakers, moguls, mini moguls, moguls in the making, people who are really doing significant work. And we're privileged to have you here with us tonight. One of the things I found that a lot or most have in common, all leaders have some book that they regularly read. They may read it only once a year, once every couple years, maybe every week, maybe every night. That book is typically found on their nightstand. Rodney, what's on your nightstand?
Well, I have the Bible, and also How to Win Influence and Win Friends. I think that, but the Bible, to answer your question, that's my main book on my nightstand.
Okay, good answer. What's next for you in terms of your professional career? Where do you go from here? What are you working on?
Well, I think marketing. I think I would. I've had the pleasure of working with you on some current publishing marketing deals, and so that's what I'm focused on right now is really a marketing company. I've kind of pivoted from being a consultant more so to marketing.
Okay.
So that's kind of what I'm focused on right now.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
It's a big need out there for marketing.
Right. And especially with COVID and the digital transformation.
Right.
With branding, I think in messaging, I think it's going to be very, very, very digitally oriented, very e-commerce digital.
Right. Absolutely. And is the marketing that you do, because social media and the digital piece is a big element of it, can that work for just about anyone, any industry?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Politicians.
Absolutely.
Companies.
Absolutely. Social media is a good way. It's a two-way communication. Mainstream media is one way. So with social media, you have two-way, and that's how these kids have been able to really get their message out globally. And like you mentioned earlier, the amount of marchers that were overseas. So that's the power of social media and the leverage it creates is really evening out the playing field.
Okay. And you've been helpful with the marchers and the leaders with social media and getting the word out?
I've been talking to them, and we've entered into some discussions. So that is something that's definitely been discussed and starting to move forward with.
Very good. Got a couple minutes left before we've got to end the show. How can our audience be helpful to you? And if folks want to get in touch with you, how do they contact you?
Well, I'm on Facebook, Rodney Kid. Love my Facebook. Go there, invite, be friends. Let's collaborate. But how to help me most is to register to vote, get your friends registered to vote, and go vote on November 4th. I think we need to get rid of it. We need new leadership, and we need a new outlook. We need new technologies. We need innovation. There's a lot of things we need, and this current leadership does not have the capabilities nor the mental capacity to make that happen. So for me, if you can do anything for me, go vote for Joe Biden in November, and make sure you take a friend or a family member. So if you leave here with one thing, please go vote for Joe Biden.
And with that, Rodney, we'd like to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Cedric.
This has been another fine episode of Press Play. I'm your host, Cedric Fisher. Join us each week, same time. Again, you can find this episode on YouTube, Black Video Network, in the search bar, all one word, no spaces. Make sure you subscribe and look for the show. Again, press play when you find this episode with Mr. Rodney King. You can also find us on Facebook, like our page, Black Book Studios. As well, you could find us at blackvideonews.com. We appreciate you guys joining us this evening. Take good care of yourself. We'll see you next time.